Now let's try other cases. Following the steps, of course, we have chosen our primary abutments and placed our rests. And this is my path of insertion. My primary abutments 1, 2, and 3. And then what? After my primary abutments, I placed my rest, being it tooth bounded. This is what? Adjacent to the edentulous space. So this is cingulum rest and this is occlusal rest. And then if since the other one is a distal extension case, we're going to place the rest away from your edentulous space. Then next up, your major connector of choice. Of course, the major connector of choice in all of distal extension cases is actually antero-posterior palatal strap, unless there are only minimal tooth or 6 teeth left. That's the only time that you're going to opt for a palatal or full palatal strap or full palatal plate. But for this case, it's a antero-posterior palatal strap. So your strap should be drawn, of course, respecting the distance from an abutment tooth or remaining teeth of 4 to 6 millimeters, and then the width of your anterior and posterior bar is 8 to 10, and your lateral bars are also 8 to 10 or 6 to 8. And then I know that you can notice that our major connector curves going to, what's this structure? Your maxillary tuberosity. So yes, it needs to curve out going to the maxillary tuberosity at this point, because it needs to point towards the maxillary tuberosity for it to have its tissue stop. You do not need to add an additional tissue stop because this one, the curving and the way you made your palatal major connector, is already the tissue stop on its own. And you can see your Gridworks for your minor connectors. Your Gridworks are again lattice, and for here I opted to end a little bit more than 2/3 of the way. That's okay. You can also opt to go all the way. That's just fine as well, or just really 2/3. So that's just okay. And compared to your mandibular, that your finish lines on your mandibular is just located adjacent to the last abutment tooth for a free or distal extension case. For a maxillary, in a distal extension case, you need to place your finish lines from the side of your abutment tooth all the way through your major connector up to the point. Not only up to where your gridwork is, but it's actually up to the point. Okay, so that's how you're going to place it. Your major connector is all the way to your maxillary tuberosity. How is that the case? It's because when you're going to place your denture base, you need to cover until your maxillary tuberosity for you to have what? The stability and the denture bearing property in maximum usage. Yes, you need to have it until here. And if you need to place your denture base until there, of course, the butt end or the butt joint should end until there. Okay. So yes. I know I have not yet placed my pontics. Let's draw it. So you're not gonna look for it. Anyways. There. So this is how you design a class 2 modification 1 case for a maxillary dentition. That's how easy. Anyways, if you're going to ask, since it's a distal extension case where your indirect retainer is located, because I told you, oh, by the way, yeah, your direct retainers of choice are already what? An I-bar to the canine, a circlet in the molar, and an I-bar or RPI to a second premolar. If we're going to ask, where is the indirect retainer? Your indirect retainer is actually by connecting two most posterior rest positions is located in your what? First, central and lateral. So therefore, this rest given by this assembly already acts as your indirect, anyways, let's move that, indirect retainer. So this has your dual purpose already. So it's already okay. And then what else? You do not call this an RPI, okay? It's not an RPI because again, remember, RPI is rest is always mesial, proximal plate at the distal, and an I-bar. Anyways, when it comes to an I-bar in a canine, for us, just to be clear, your I-bar in the canine should always be placed mesially to the middle or mesially to the middle third of the buccal surface. Why do we need to place it a little bit mesial? It's because when it rotates, there will be no force for it to push forward, and it will dislodge if it will be rotating backwards, and then there is no catch. So you need to have that catch, and also to prevent this canine from drifting forward. Why will it drift forward? Because of the push of the materials here. Although this is minimal for the orthodontic case, this is mostly maximal in a distal extension case. But nonetheless, just for an explanation. Okay, I hope that's clear. So we are done with the class 1, and then class 2, and then a class 3. So we go to the last classification with the most basic design principle, and that is your class 4. And of course, following all of the steps, we have placed we have chosen our primary abutment tooth, we have placed our rests, and then our major connector, and then our minor connector, direct retainers. Yep. So as to explain the principle, we know that the direct retainers, when it comes to a class 4, is always 4. Diba? As I told you a while ago, it's always 4. Why 4? Because imagine, if we're just going to, place the rest, let's omit this, place the rest directly on the abutment area, of course, it will tend to, rotate. So it will rotate going there. It's going to rotate. So you need the aid of other abutment tools. How about, ma'am, if we just use the most posterior abutment? We do not place anything here. As in, you do not place anything. For example, you're just going to place your gridwork. No proximal plates, no whatever. Again, it will tend to rotate going here. So it will rotate backwards. That's why you need to distribute the load evenly into 4 abutment teeth. So this is one of the most basic. Just clasp the premolars and then clasp the first molars. Of course, among all of the dentition, it's actually the first molars that provides maximum strength in retention because it's the biggest and it can bear more load because of its configuration, especially in its root configuration. It has the greatest periodontal support, if not compromised. So there. So if you're going to ask again, can I use an I-bar in this area or bars? You may opt to do so, but a bar coming from the anteriors will actually be seen in your denture base. So what do I mean? It's going to shadow the denture base. So if you have your denture base, for example, here, just imagine that you already have your pontics there. So that we're fast. Placing of something underneath the denture base, knowing that your denture base is slightly translucent, it will have a shadowing grayish effect and it will not be aesthetically pleasing. If it's located more posteriorly, then maybe, or just maybe, we can consider using an I-bar coming from an anterior edentulous area, anteriorly located edentulous area. Okay, nonetheless, this is one of the most basic. Now let's try to see another case. There. So this is a mandibular case. This is class 3 modification tooth case, and this is actually one with a Pier abutment. So what is a Pier abutment? A Pier abutment is that abutment that has no adjacent teeth at both sides. So you have what? Edentulous spaces at both sides. So normally when we come forward or face through an abutment tooth, we do not really use it as an abutment. Rather, we just plate it using proximal plates for it to sterilize. We do not give it any load. And then we design as usual. Since this is class 3, maximum of 4 clasps or direct retainers, but we can opt to give it 3 direct retainers, and this is what I did in this case, so that it will be minimal and less tissue contact. So I gave a clasp in the second molar, and then in the premolar, and then in the molar. This is the first molar. So knowing that the strength of the distribution, that I have already 3 rests, it can already support my denture. Another, this is what? Molar gaming. What do we mean by molar gaming? We have direct retainers and supports placed on the most or the stronger types of abutment tooth. So it can actually support my my design. And aside from, for example, a lattice type of gridwork, you can actually opt for these types of gridwork, because imagine this is just what? A missing canine. It's just drawn a little bit largely, and then this is what? A missing premolar. So we know a premolar and a canine has a small mesodistal distance, so it will be very difficult for you to place what? A lattice or a mesh in such cases. So we may opt to place this. This is actually what? So I'll try to rotate because I've drawn it upside down. It's a retentive post. Here, this is how it looks like. So this is a metal post connected to your gridwork, and this is usually used for a single missing edentulous space. But aside from that, its other function is, this is the only type of grid work that you can use if you opt to use what? Porcelain. Yes, Giselle. Porcelain pontics. Because your porcelain pontics are what? Only mechanically retained. Unlike your acrylic pontics, they are chemically retained to your denture bases. This, for porcelain pontics, you need the aid of a mechanical retention given by your retentive post. Okay, next type for a single, we have this one. This is the beaded type. If you have read your notes, this is the beaded metal base. Yeah, beaded metal base type. So you just what? Place beads or like little bit of porosity in the area for it to mechanically retain your acrylic denture base, and that acrylic denture base will retain your acrylic pontics. So there. So yeah, let's try to see another case here. This is another mandibular case, so it's already designed. Anyways, as you can see, this is actually what? Class 3 modification 4. This is a tooth bounded case. And yes, Applegate's rules, if the third molar is present and to be used as an abutment, it's considered in the classification. And as a tip for you, if your third molar is present and is in a normal or healthy condition, use it. It's better for you to use a third molar rather than have a free end case, because a free end case is more problematic than a tooth mounted case. So you just use it if it's there. So I chose my primary abutments as of course my first molar, my third molar, and then my second molar at the other side. For this, you can either choose to direct it at the from the distal, or if you like, you can also place it from the mesial. You do not need to ring this because, again, I repeat, your ring clasps, I repeat, this is just an ideal state. And your ring clasps are indicated in tooth that are in what? In a tilted or lingually, mesially, distally, or lingually tilted molar abutments. Or if you need an additional support, that's the only time. So, no need. You may use them. If you're going to ask me if I need further support for this case, I actually do. But this one is again a Pier abutment. So I'd rather not place any form of load on this tooth, may it be a rest or whatsoever, because it may not be able to carry the load of such. And this is a mandibular canine, so it's not ideal for you to to place a lingual cingulum rest. An incisal rest too, it would just lever unless it's necessary if you have no other supporting structures. But if you like an additional support, although it's already given at a 3 is the most or the minimum, you may actually opt to add a rest in this premolar. It's just fine. And when you add the rest, you do not really need to place a direct retainer. It's not really that indicated. Why? Ma'am, it's class 3. The maximum is what? 4. It's the ideal. Yes, that's the ideal, but I already have 3. And aside from 3, I reinforced my retention by the use of my guide planes. And my guide planes and proximal plates are where? Here. I have it here. I have it here. I have it here, here, and here. So I have a lot of guide planes. And that guide planes would provide what? Guide planes in contact with proximal plates in contact with guide planes provide frictional retention. Even my rigid parts of my clasp provide frictional retention. So it would be enough for retention. Okay. Alright. So this is the other one that we have discussed a while ago. So if you would like to see or compare it in a cast, it's going to be a lot more different. So this is in a 2D form and this is the 3D form. Right. So drawing in the cast would entail much more technique, because we are going to follow some of the design principles already as if simulating the wax. So we're going to draw. So we're going to learn this step by step.